Hello everyone, time for an update. So best way of describing things is there's a lot going on but not much happening. These are the only figures that I've managed to complete, but I seem to spend hours every day at my painting desk. So that's basically what I mean. A lot of time on the hobby, but not much in the way of results to show for it at the moment. The thing is, I'm sort of spreading myself very thinly, and you know how it is, just getting enthused about more and more things. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. So if you remember, I recently completed some dismounted US cavalry for the game of Western, and I realised at the time that I didn't quite have enough figures to play a game, and sent off an order to Old Glory for some more Blue Moon figures, and only got kind of a partial order back because they were out of stock of quite a lot of the figures, and unfortunately all the ones that were out of stock were the what you might call the combatants. So I picked this packet out of the ones that had arrived. This is the Last Stand vignette, and I thought I could use some of the figures as leaders and the others as casualty figures, so they are going to come in useful, but not really going to get me much further in terms of actually playing a game. Really nice group of figures. I didn't say before, I haven't said in the past, but these Blue Moon figures, I was sort of experimenting with them because I do have a lot of 15mm Peter Pig figures, and obviously they do a range suitable for their own set of rules, but I wanted to try a different range out, and these were the first. These Blue Moon figures were the first I'd tried from them, and they are nice figures, and I really like the poses and so on. But some of the casting is a little bit kind of crude. Peter Pig's figures are a lot cleaner and crisper. These Blue Moon figures have a lot of excess metal, and it's not always possible to actually clean them off, but they paint up well. I'm pleased with the result, and I'm looking at the range thinking, as I say, getting enthused about other periods and things, and thinking I might pick up some more figures from them for other ranges. As I say, this particular set is called the Last Stand vignette. It doesn't actually say Custer's Last Stand, although there are other packets in their range where they actually have personalities from the Little Bighorn and so on, so there's a fairly obvious reference there to the Battle of the Little Bighorn. And I was pleasantly surprised that there are actually more figures in the pack than I was expecting. I don't know if that's a mistake and I was just lucky, or whether it's mistyped on Old Glory's website, but they actually say the contents of the pack are 4 laying horses, 2 with troopers posed behind them, and 7 individual figures. Now, what I've actually got is 8 lying horses, 2 of them having figures posed behind them. They're the 2 on the smaller bases that have just gone by the front of the arc there, and 9 individuals. So I think the only thing I can think is that looking at them again, what you actually get is 4 different poses of laying horse and 7 different poses of individual figures. So I've got a feeling that that's what they meant, and you actually get kind of pairs and triples of various poses and so on. So you do actually get a lot more in the pack than is advertised. So that was good news. And yeah, as I say, they make a nice little addition to my army. All the ones on the outside are going to be casualty figures, and then the full figures in the centre I've put on two separate stands. So I've got two pairs of figures there. So that's going to be two leader stands that I'll be able to use. And looking forward to the day that I can actually play a game. So what I'm going to do now is show you the next thing I have got painted. They're not figures, but they're lots of bits and pieces off of out of my 3D printer that I've painted up. And whereas I was intending to show my 3D prints, painted sort of 3D prints on in a separate playlist, I'm going to include them here because they're all fairly sort of mundane, generic items, so it'll demonstrate that I have been working on other things. But as I say, these are the only figures I've actually managed to complete. Right then, so laid out on the table here, lots of pretty ordinary kind of mundane items that I've painted up out of my 3D printer. So I'll take the camera off the tripod in a moment and show them to you a little bit more close up. But just to say that I'm finding with 3D printing that I like the sort of the results so much that it's kind of drawing me into yet more kind of projects and so on, and that I want to kind of, I'll sort of see a building that looks fantastic and think, yeah, I've got to print that up, but it's in a period that I don't war game, so it's kind of making me want to, war gaming in different scales and different periods and so on, and it's just adding to this, sort of butterfly effect, just sort of drawing me away to other periods than that. But that's all I'm going to say on that subject for the moment. Just that there are other things possibly in the pipeline coming up, and now let's sort of show you in a bit more detail some of these more generic items that are going to come in handy for things that I do war game at the moment. First up then, lots and lots of stone walling. I showed you some of this stone walling unpainted. I've now got it all with a kind of very basic paint job, so it's ready to go on the table. I reckon there must be in total about 13 or maybe even 14 feet of this stuff. Various sort of types. You've got sort of end walls that you can put together like that. You've got single pieces that are edged at both ends, so they're sort of standalone walls. You've got corners, you've got sort of straight sections that obviously you put together into lines and so on. So there's all various kind of configurations that you can do with it. I've printed it sort of so that it's basically 28mm scale, and my first kind of call on it will probably be for the sort of Jacobite rebellion, because it's got that kind of granite stone wall kind of look to it that you might get on the moors up in Scotland, or indeed down here in Devon. So it's going to be pretty useful for a lot of different war games. And then next up, I printed a lot of snake fencing, painted that up in 15mm, so for 15mm American Civil War primarily. Again, pretty bog standard, but I like the way I've got some already, but you often see people representing snake fencing with matchsticks, and that's fine. But I like the way in the 3D print, they've gone that extra kind of mile, and they've got these sort of supporting beams and so on, and you'll notice that a lot of them sort of I damaged as I tried to extricate them from the build plate, but in fact that gives them a little bit more you know, of a sort of used appearance. The brakes, which were mainly on the underside, so I don't know if you can see, but there's one lost a bit of the segment there on the bottom rail, but it actually makes them look as though they've been standing out in the open for a few years and they've taken damage and so on, and you know, gives them a little bit more realistic appearance, so that didn't worry me. So well, I've probably got about 4 feet of that, a lot more if you stretch it out, but it's probably about 4 feet of snake fencing. And then here got a lot of haystacks. Now these are out of a Russian themed set of files, so they're kind of Russian haystacks, 15mm. First thought is that I'll be able to use them for the Russian Civil War, but there are other, maybe by fire and sword, that would work as well, and then more on another possible setting later in this video. And then finally, these are interesting. These are from a Kickstarter that I backed, and they were basically lots of trees. Now in the main, the trees were just the trunks, so they were kind of cut off at the top, so you didn't have any of the branches, and the idea was that you could print them off and then use them in games set in forests. But in that group, so I've got all those for later use, but in that group there were lots of stumps and fallen trees and trunks and so on. So I printed those all off. They're sort of a bit scaleless in a way, but they are kind of proportioned down to be mainly of use in 15mm. And yeah, so I've printed those off first of all, because obviously you can just put them down on the tabletop for use wherever you want. But the interesting things about this, I think, is that they're all taken from life. So what the guy's done is he's used the technique of photogrammetry, which I did talk about on a previous video, and basically there's a technique that you can use if you have many photographs from different angles of an object. The minimum you need would say be about 50. Then you can use software to actually recreate all those various two-dimensional images back into a 3D object, so you can recreate in 3D an object that you photographed in the wild. So this guy is based in Canada, and he's taken pictures of trees in parks and in the wild and so on. So these are actual tree stumps and so on that exist out in the wild. So rather than just getting sort of branches from your garden, you know, which do look all right, these are actually sort of scaled down versions of real stumps and so on, which I think is quite neat. One of them, I think it's this particular one, I don't know if you can see it, but it's actually got like a woodpecker hole in it, a real life woodpecker. He hasn't sort of like sculpted it or anything. That's actually how it is in the wild. So yeah, as I say, my first aim with these is just to use them as bits of scatter terrain. But they are going to come in handy for, say, games like Western, where you have to kind of drop tiny bits of terrain into various squares to represent sparse terrain. so I'll be able to use them in that. So yeah, quite pleased with that, and I'll no doubt find other uses for them as well. So that is all the painting that I want to show you. So now I'm going to go on to sort of various purchases that I've made, discuss some of those. So I've picked up a couple of rule sets, this being the first one. It's Aerial Combat World War II set of rules called Lacquered Coffins, and a friend of mine introduced me to these rules about nearly getting off 2 years ago now. Had some really good games of it with him, and just recently acquired some of those plastic 1/300th scale aircraft from the Plastic Soldier Company, so thought I'd get hold of my own copy of these rules now in order to be able to use it with those. I haven't got around to painting any of those planes yet because I'm waiting on an order of some flight stands. First time I've ever used the company, Goblin Gaming, and I hadn't realised, they operate in a similar fashion to Wayland Games, it would appear, in that they say that something's available, but it just means that they can get hold of it for you and send it on to you, and you wait ages to for your order. So over a month ago now that I ordered it, and they haven't arrived, even though they were apparently available. There's a distinction between being available and being in stock, it would appear. So that's a bit annoying, but I can wait. I've got plenty of time, plenty of other things to do. So yeah, what I'll do, I won't say much about these rules now. I'll do a sort of demo game once I've got the flight stands and painted some planes up. But rather than a hex system, which Check Your Six uses, they actually use a straightforward protractor for turning and so on. And you have an altitude dice and a speed dice to indicate the altitude and the speed of the aircraft model. So the models that I've got are 1/300th scale, and it actually says that these rules are designed for 1/600th, or even you could go up to 1/144 scale. So the whole point about using a protractor, obviously, is that the larger the model scale, the tighter the kind of turning circle. So I would have thought 1/144 would be a little bit tight in terms of the turning circle, and even 1/600th. So I think 1/300th is going to work fine with them. But as I say, I'm not going to. I haven't revised my knowledge of these rules anyway to be able to do it. But I won't go into the game mechanics or anything. Other than say I really enjoyed those games I played with my friends. So looking forward to getting around to this. Now, the other set of rules that I got hold of is a little bit of a new realm for me. O Group. I play bolt action, so I am into my World War II wargaming. But I saw a couple of these. I saw a couple of videos on YouTube where these rules were being demoed. The Two Fat Lardies obviously have got their own introductory sort of videos on it. It's from the rules are from Ricefitz Press, which is a sort of a partner of Two Fat Lardies. And also JK Wargames has done some, and another, forget the name of the other YouTube channel, but I thought they looked really, I really enjoyed watching the games. It's the perfect kind of scale for me. Bolt action although I enjoy playing it, it never seems. I mean, it's a skirmish game really, but a sort of with tanks and so on, and artillery added in, and it doesn't quite feel right for me. Whereas this is a sort of battalion-sized game, and it's got loads of interesting mechanics and so on. Again, I'm not going to go into the rule mechanisms themselves because it's been done far better in other on other channels. It's just to say that I've got hold of these rules now, and off into yet another new project. But this ties into what I was saying earlier about 3D printing, that I've got so many files now that I've purchased for World War II, and going to be able to print loads of buildings off. I have got in my lead mountain a lot of 15mm World War II figures, but they are all North Africa, which you can use these rules for. So that's where I'm going to start. I've already painted up some tanks long ago, not recently, and then put it aside. I was going to play Flames of War, and never got around to it. But I've got loads of unpainted figures that are suitable for the Desert War. So that's where I'm going to start. So as well as the hardback book, I didn't bother with the PDF. I can't cope with PDF. But I also purchased the MDF tokens and so on for use in the game. And I can recommend you looking at the Two Fat Lardies website and looking at their playthrough of the rules. It's really well done. It looks a really interesting game. And you get a couple of quick reference sheets. Well, not a couple. It's 2 sheets of quick reference rather than a couple of the same quick reference sheet. You get that. Comes with it. So yeah, I don't know how long it'll take me to get around to getting figures painted up in that, but I thought they were really interesting set of rules. The one set of rules that I managed to avoid the temptation to buy, although I was sort of sorely tempted, was the Danish company's Eagles of Empire rules for the Franco-Prussian War. That's a similar thing. I mean, I like the period. I have played black powder games of Franco-Prussian War with down at the club, not with my own figures. I don't have any figures for it. But that's a similar thing to the bolt action wars. It's not quite the right scale for me. So much as I like the figures and the rules look interesting, I feel the Franco-Prussian War is still more a war of mass battles. So I would prefer, if I were to play it maybe in a 15mm scale and using rules like black powder. So I've managed to resist the temptation to get into that, but it was close. Finally, just want to show you a book that I acquired recently. So this was a book I've had my eye on for quite a while now, and it was going discounted price on the Naval and Military Press website, so I finally succumbed and picked it up. It's basically photographs of the Crimean War, contemporary photographs, laid side by side with the Victorian era photographs of the period. So open the page, there's sort of good examples. Pictures of Balaclava then and now. It's made me realise that I really must get round to continuing my Crimean War project. I've got, you know, a decent sized British army now, but nothing for them to fight other than a few bits of Russian artillery. So I really must get round to that again. So, you know, similar kind of thing. It's you know, just one thing on top of another, and it never seem to finish anything. But yeah, definitely have to kind of bring that back to the front of the priorities. So there you go. That's my update. What I've been up to, and you know, the little that I've managed to do. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.